So since when is improving something you need a method for? I mean, don't we improve every day? We solve problems, we learn, we grow. Why all this extra? These are fair questions, and not all problems require a method. But if you're watching this video, you've probably come across one that's made you feel stuck. Improvement methods exist because solving complex problems can be hard, really hard. And you can't help but wonder what it was like during simpler times, back when people made everything by hand. So what happened to those days? Well, one day in the 18th century, Adam Smith walked into a pin factory, which first, I know, what is a pin factory? Pins were a lot like the iPhones of the 18th century. People used them for pretty much everything, even dating. But what's important to remember about these pins is that it took 18 distinct steps to make a pin. Now, traditionally, one worker would make one pin by performing each of the 18 steps themselves. Adam Smith demonstrated that by dedicating workers to one or two steps versus all 18, they could produce 50 times more pins in the same amount of time. And they made fewer mistakes in the process. In addition to this significant improvement in performance, Smith noticed something else he wasn't expecting. Processes began to appear that were not there before. Ones to bring raw materials to workers or to transport work in progress. And then processes to support those processes began to appear. These new processes weren't necessarily designed, they just kind of happened. Sound familiar? Although processes can and will develop organically like this, they don't automatically grow in a way that optimizes performance. There's process overlap and interdependencies. Changes in one part of a system can have unintended outcomes in another. And in the middle of all of this, there are people. People who crave agency and pride of workmanship, but who can also fatigue and make mistakes. So, yeah, improving in complex environments is hard. Luckily, our history is full of improvers like you who have been studying and codifying how to do it. One you may have heard of is American quality engineer Edwards Deming. Deming is often credited for popularizing a method called the PDSA cycle, for Plan, Do, Study, Act. Rather than making haphazard changes, the PDSA cycle guides improvers to formulate a hypothesis, test it, and with an experiment, objectively evaluate the results and decide how best to use the knowledge gained. We've learned this and so much about improvement in the last 100 years. We have a better understanding of the voice of the customer, involving frontline workers, and the role of leadership. And the more we learned about what works, the more we began to tailor methods to their unique environments. This is why we have more than one method. Some popular methods include the Lean or A3 method from the automotive industry, Six Sigma or the DMAIC method from device manufacturing, and more recently Agile from the software development sector. None of these methods are magic potions to solve your problem overnight, though you will sometimes hear them described that way. They are just groups of people working together to figure out how to get better at improving in dynamic environments. They will help structure your thinking, but they will not replace it. They're like a roadmap for how to approach a problem which you may not always follow exactly. For example, there may be times when the next step in the method doesn't quite make sense with the information that's in front of you. Remember, the goal of improvement is not to follow a method perfectly, or to be truly lean, or Six Sigma, or Agile. It's to deliver a high-quality product or service to the customer safely and in the most efficient, financially sustainable way possible. Methods are a means to an end. Always be discerning.
People ask me, I'm trying to lose weight. Should I go keto? Should I do paleo? Should I do this, do that? There are a lot of different options. And similar to all those in QI, there are lots of different methods. And honestly, it doesn't really matter. What's more important is that you have a method.
With that introduction and disclaimer, I'll introduce you to the method that we will be guiding you through in this series, the A3 problem-solving method. We found it most helpful, though, to think of an A3 as a storytelling document. The characters and plots vary from project to project, but the arc of the story remains the same. There are 4 parts. First, a call to action and a separation from everyday life. Second is what's called the descent, where the hero approaches a major conflict. Third comes the ordeal, the conflict and its reward. And finally, you have the hero's return to home to put their reward to work into society. I know what you may be thinking, and I'll just go ahead and say it. Yes, I am saying that improvers are heroes. It's easy to talk about problems. Only the heroic choose to do something about them. So let's take a look at an A3 to see what you can expect. Like the hero's journey, the A3 is divided into 4 parts. The first part of the A3 is also a call to action. A team of improvers assemble outside their daily work to define a problem, why it matters, to whom it matters, and why it must be solved over other problems. In this phase, teams are totally preoccupied with getting the right people on their team, the right sponsors, and building a shared understanding of the problem. The second part is the descent. In part 2, the teams will literally descend upon the physical space in which the problem resides. They will make visible what is invisible with process maps and diagrams. They will investigate all leads, ask all questions, and form a deep understanding of the many things that cause the problem stated in part 1. Armed with this understanding of their foe, they will also set a goal for themselves that is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, or SMART. In part 3 comes the ordeal, or the conflict. Now the team will finally get to fight their problem. They'll study what they've learned in parts 1 and 2, determine which conditions they'll need to create to be successful, and test changes that they believe will create those conditions. In the Greek myth of Perseus and Medusa, a condition for Perseus to defeat Medusa was that he never looked directly at Medusa's face, or risked being turned to stone. The intervention that satisfied this condition was using the reflection in his shield to see his enemy. The testing process begins with a change idea and a hypothesized result. The team will then plan the test, execute it, assess its impact, iterate, and test again until the team is either satisfied with the changes or convinced that they will not deliver the desired results. In part 4, the hero returns home to share the reward with society. For improvers, this means returning to a new normal of operations that now includes the changes proven to benefit the system or society overall. In the Old English epic Beowulf, the hero protects a Scandinavian town from a troll, the troll's mother, and a dragon, and then dies as a result. The story ends with a monument being built in a town left wondering who will protect them when the next enemy appears. In improvement work, the town can't be left wondering. That's why your improvement team must plan for the next monster with deliberate sustainment planning. You'll ask questions like, who will make sure these changes remain in place? How will we know if they need to be adjusted? What will tell us if they are working or not working? There are no right or wrong answers to these questions, but they are the difference between a flash-in-the-pan improvement project and one that creates lasting change.
One of the key things in doing QI work, and especially when you're getting started, is realizing that structure is critical, but you can't be so narrow-minded in your thinking that you're only adhering to the structure. QI, like everything else in medicine, is dynamic, and you have to be reactive and responsive to the environment around you. So the structure is a scaffold, but it's not a hard, set, fast, rule book that must be followed. One of the things that I hear often for people who have identified problems but are hesitant to start on the journey of doing QI work is, I don't have time, or I've tried other things and they haven't worked before. Why should I bother with this? And I would say to those of you out there who are at that point, go ahead and do it, because you will realize whether you succeed immediately or fail immediately, the learning that you get from going through the process of doing QI work will make you not only more likely to succeed in that project that you have in mind, but will make you a better problem identifier, executor, and solver in the long run. So you have honestly nothing to lose from learning the QI method.
Remember, improvement methods are not fail-proof. They are, however, the products of generations of improvers like you, so they are worth your attention. What's most important is for you and your team to continuously evaluate the needs of your project against these methods. Ultimately, follow your intuition. So choose your method, discern your path forward, and leave an organization better than you found it.